Chapter 6. Once upon a time there was a little green magic man. His name was Satchkin Patchkin, and he lived like a leaf in the apple tree. The apple tree grew by the hedge at the bottom of a long, untidy garden. A tangle of brambles no longer scrambled the length and breadth of the garden, but the grass was not cut. The earth was not levelled, it was lumpy and bumpy and torn and dishevelled. At the other end of the garden stood the small cottage where Mother Farthing lived. Its curtains, its thatch, and its windows were new, but its worm-eaten doors still hung sadly askew. In the chilly, bird-busy morning, Mother Farthing rose and set about her baking. As she took a fresh batch of honey cakes from the oven, she remembered the basin of blackberries she had gathered the day before. "There are not enough berries to make tarts to sell in the market," she thought, "so I will make a pie for myself and the little green magic man." When the pie was cool, Mother Farthing cut a generous slice and topped it with cream. Then she went to the door and called, "Satchkin Patchkin, hear me lift the latchkin. Satchkin Patchkin, hear me lift the latch." "You have forgotten to throw the thimble into the jug," came the calm, clear answer. "It was not milk I wanted," said the old woman. "I have cut you a slice of blackberry pie." "So I see," said the little green magic man, leaping light to the table. "A generous slice. It looks juicy and nice." "It should have been blackberry and apples," said the old woman, thinking of the hard green apples on her tree. "But the fruit is nowhere near ripe." "It will be ripe tomorrow," said Satchkin Patchkin. "Make me another pie then." "I have no more berries," Mother Farthing told him, "but I will search the lane and see what I can find." "Do not put yourself to the trouble," Satchkin Patchkin said. "Wash out the basin with water from the spring, leave it on your window-sill tonight, and I will fill it for you." The old woman did as she was bid, and next morning she found the basin full to the brim with shining blackberries. "When I return from the market," she said, "I will gather the fruit from the apple tree and make apple and blackberry pie." She took up the basket of cakes she had baked the day before and set off for the town. There was never a moment of doubt in her mind, for the little green magic man had said she would find the apples ripe. Now the apple had been set long ago, thin and shivering, and little and low, by the hedge at the end of the garden. As it grew it was blown, and now it had grown away from the wind and leant across the hedge. Most of its crop of small apples would drop into the field beyond. The old woman's landlord never troubled about the apples. Hard they had been, and bitter and green, and they did not improve with keeping. In the bustling town, the old woman sat down in her usual place in the square. She had no need to cry her wares, for her customers knew her already. All her cakes were soon sold. She changed pence into gold and began the long walk home. As she reached the top of the hill, she saw in the lane before her a man upon a horse. It was the farmer, her landlord, riding to look at his land. He turned his horse into the field by the old woman's cottage. He rode around the edge to make sure that the hedge would hold his new flock of sheep. When he came to the place where the apple tree grew, he saw with surprise that it was laden with fruit. The farmer reached up and plucked an apple from the end of a bending bough. It was ripe. It was mellow. Its skin was pale yellow. It was crisp. It was sweet. "Why have I never noticed this tree before?" mused the farmer, taking another bite of apple. "It bears excellent fruit. It is well laden too, enough to last me the winter. I will send my men with baskets directly to gather this fine crop of apples." He rode out of the field and into the lane just as the old woman reached her garden gate. She dropped him a curtsy, but he said not a word as he passed. He was a lean man, a mean man, a man without a smile, and cared nothing for courtesy. Mother Farthing went into her cottage and put down her basket. When she rested a little, she drank a mug of milk and ate some bread and cheese. Then she took up the basket again and went into the garden. Hardly had she taken the first smooth apple from the tree when she heard the rattle and clatter of a cart in the lane. In a moment there were men in the field beyond the hedge. They were carrying baskets and rough pointed ladders and coming towards the tree. The old woman knew at once what they were after. She cried out to the little green magic man she knew was among the leaves, "Satchkin Patchkin, my apples they will snatchkin! Satchkin Patchkin, my apples they will snatch!" And then she began to gather the fruit as fast as she could, dropping and plopping it into the basket at her feet, quite forgetting that apples misused will become apples bruised. As the men drew nearer, the old woman could hear them arguing among themselves. "'Tis the old woman's tree," said one. "We've no right to touch it." "'Tis leaning over the hedge," said another. "If the fruit should drop, it'll drop into the field." By this time they had reached the tree and were pushing the awkward, pointed ladder into the branches. The father came so slow. "Make haste, you laggards," he cried. "I want all the fruit picked by sundown." Stretching and snatching and reaching and catching, Mother Farthing was gathering her apples as fast as she could. Then from among the leaves above her came a sound like the ringing of a far-off bell. "Satchkin Patchkin, spread your shawl and catchkin. Satchkin Patchkin, spread your shawl and catch." Mother Farthing snatched up her shawl from the log where she had thrown it and spread it on the ground. Shaking and quivering, every leaf shivering, the apple tree leaned slowly away from the hedge. Its branches were swung up and apples were flung up high into the air. Like great flakes of snow they fell, gentle and slow, and settled themselves on the shawl. In the field the lean, mean farmer stood speechless. His men were struck dumb. Their limbs had grown numb. They were stuck to the ground with fright. Out of the trembling tree came the clear, sweet voice again. "My name is Satchkin Patchkin, and I live like a leaf in the apple tree."